Hi guys and welcome. This is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. Hello, this is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast. Today we have a special guest with us. I'm so psyched he could be here. His name is Todd Goldfinger. He's pretty amazing. He's an all-around artist, musician, podcaster, and host and producer of the Comcast 21 show called Conversations About Mental Health. So thank you, Todd, for joining us. And I'm so psyched that we're going to be having our own conversation about mental health.
It's great to be on the show. Now, obviously, I'm not here to take over your show. I didn't. It's not my intention. But I think that you and I should have a regular show weekly. But we're going to talk about that more. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, we'll see.
If you get the ratings, good views, gets 100,000 views, perfect. Then it's a good direction.
Well, that's the beginning point, I hope.
The beginning point, endorsements, sponsorships, all that. Anyway, enough about the Perspective show. I would tell you that I'm a very lucky person to have survived suicide.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your own journey about mental health and, what you came across with your own bouts with illness and also your experience with psychiatry. Then we'll get to your cool background.
Thank you. No, I mean, the mental health part is important. In fact, I'm thinking about putting it back onto my website, toddgoldfinger.com, where, it's pretty much about music and things like that. I offer consulting and coaching for artists that need a little chutzpah. And help them out. They kick in a few shekels to my Venmo, and everything is cool.
All right. So why don't you tell us a little, before you get into the mental health thing, tell me a little bit about yourself when it comes to yourself as a musician. I know that you've traveled the world. How early did you get started with music? Music
started with me at about 5 years old. I mean, I probably was introduced to Tchaikovsky and classical music from the womb. And at 5 years old, there was an open music night at the elementary school with different instruments laid out on the stage. And I walked up to the violin and I said, I want to play this one. I like this. And I picked it up. And they gave me actually what was just a box with a ruler attached to it with maybe some rubber bands. And they said, well, practice with this. So, when I was about 5 years old, I was practicing with this little thing. And then they gave me a Suzuki violin, which is very, very nice. And I became a violin player at the age of 5. Now, I wasn't great or anything like this. I wasn't reading music. As a matter of fact, I never learned to read music.
Really?
So it tells you what kind of savant I am.
Well, eventually you did. Didn't you go to SUNY Purchase?
I went to SUNY Purchase, but I had a hell of a time in the orchestration part where I had to do 100 bars. In scoring, I had to put the notation in for 13 different instruments, but 100. What do they call them? The
measures.
Measures, yeah, exactly. The measures. I guess the measures. Yeah, you're right.
So I want to get to the fact that you were traveling, I think, based on your own whims or whatnot, like right after college, right after 9/11. Yeah, and then you found yourself in Europe. So how'd that go? Started in Miami?
Yeah, my first hospitalization was in Miami. That's how I got introduced to, I guess, being prescribed medication and getting really, for lack of better terms, really fucked up on it because they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They gave me, I think, not Effexor, but it was something along the lines of like an antidepressant, which kicked out this manic side. I had an episode in a parking lot. I was Baker acted, if anybody knows what that is. In Florida.
Explain that.
Baker Act is basically they can arrest you or you can go with them to the loony bin. Mm-hmm. And I chose the loony bin. Anyway, I was begging for help. I was crying. I said, please help me anyway, I wanted help, and I needed help, and it was very embarrassing for my family at the time. I was living with my godparents, and my grandparents were there too in Miami. So that was part of the reason after 9/11 why I went to Miami. And I thought, I saw this on TV, and just having to watch this horror over and over and over again of 9/11, and it was a nightmare. And I said, well, let me get out of here. So the week of 9/11, and this is really crazy. I mean, I don't know if you believe in cosmic stuff, but if you like cosmic stuff, you like
we want to push
things?
out cosmic stuff on this channel.
Okay. So here's a cosmic thing. The week of 9/11, I had planned to leave New York anyway, right?
Okay.
Now, why was I leaving New York? Do I sense danger? What's going on? Do I just want to get out? And I'm Jewish too, so it's like
what does the Jewish have to do?
I have no idea. The Holocaust. Everything goes back to the Holocaust. So, I sold my car the morning of 9/11. I mean, as a matter of fact, the guy who was selling the car, we were sitting there, we saw it on the TV, the plane that went in, and the first plane, and then second, and then it was just like, I thought, I got to get out of here. I don't know what the hell's going on, but this isn't right. This doesn't look right, and I felt sick to my stomach. I just wanted to get out of there, and I went down to Miami, and after a few months, I was pretty depressed, and then I have this episode in the mall, and then I'm put on Zyprexa, which was a wonder drug at the time. I thought it was really, really helpful.
Did they label you with anything?
Yeah, they said rule out bipolar disorder.
Rule it out?
Yeah.
Were you eventually labeled with that?
Yeah, down the line a couple times. And then when I was in Germany, they said schizoaffective disorder, which is the diagnosis I actually prefer, because I think it's more accurate.
You know I don't believe in diagnoses, right?
I know, but if I have to go around and say, what am I, or why is it that it's so difficult for me to have a normal job, or this and that, it's like, I have a disorder that I'm fucked up, My dad died when I was 12, and I'm really fucked up, So, I mean, I helped myself. I healed myself through the use of psychedelics. But let me tell you something, things have gotten a lot better. I mean, since the DMT trip, after my suicide attempt, oh man, let me tell you something. Life is pretty peachy. I'm very optimistic.
Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so let's go back
Sure.
a second. You were talking about getting first hospitalized in Miami, being given these drugs, and you ended up being put on a lot of them at one time, right?
Yeah, at some point I was on 5 different medications. And people complain a lot about this going on in America, but this was Germany that I was being overprescribed.
Well, it's a Western thing.
It's a Western thing that's bled over. I mean, they're doing this in Poland. They got it going on in Vietnam. Everywhere you go, they have adopted this system. Even in Trinidad, they have it. So they have it everywhere now. And this is the adopted system. But the truth of the matter is, they still don't know what the hell they're talking about most of the time, which is really the crazy thing, because, all these things should be sorted out pre-med, and have these real life experiences. But you know what? It's not a perfect world. It's not a perfect place. It's really fucked up. People don't know what the hell's going on. The patients have to inform the doctors. That's where they're getting their information these days, is from the patients. We're the guinea pigs, but we're the seers, we're the visionaries, we're the leaders, we're the pioneers, we're the ones who are talking to the public and saying things that, hey man, these people who are supposed to be authorities don't know what the fuck they're doing. What the hell's going on here? Amen. Mic drop.
And a lot of places like, say, India or, other nations that have more of a faith-based healing, or, they rely on plant healing that, we're both going to talk about. They don't want to be told to take drugs. They don't want to be told that there's something wrong with their brains. They believe in this idea that there's an environmental construct that causes a lot of their pain, which I would say is also true in Western nations. So this idea that we are completely ignoring environmental stresses, like you told me that you were suicidal, or at one point.
For a very long time I was suicidal.
But your father died.
Yeah.
When you were 12 and he was young. So that's
44 he was.
Right. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the way you were born. It just means something happened to you and you reacted to it in a certain way. And
it was also untreated. It wasn't treated. I thank goodness they didn't put me on medications when I was 13.
Right.
Or,
But they do that today.
They do that today, and it's awful. Imagine these kids being traumatized so young by this whole system. I'm sorry to say, it needs to be revamped. I mean, there has to be a lot to be done, and the education has to come from the patients. Unfortunately,
absolutely,
we are the guinea pigs, but you must listen to us, and there it is. There you have it.
Well, as a guinea pig, you are...
Better terms.
You have tested a few other alternative treatments, which we try to push here also on Not As Crazy As You Think. We have a shared podcast guest, Lynn Paradia.
Friend of the show.
Yes,
of the shows.
She's a wonderful pro plant healing doctor. And I know that you were also, you had that wonderful experience with DMT. Tell us a little bit about that and with your interest in experiencing microdosing from, say, mushrooms.
Okay, so when I was in Berlin, let's say in 2016, maybe around November, I had started microdosing on mushrooms because it was available in this hippie artist squat that I was living in at the time.
The greenhouse.
Yeah, which we can talk about another time, which is pretty crazy. I'm
interested in hearing a little bit about after you tell me about
DMT. It's a dangerous place.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's exciting. It was exciting. I think probably now it's very boring and people are just smearing shit on the walls. What I would say about it is I was lucky enough. After this, 2019 was my suicide attempt. And after that, actually, I'm not telling anybody should do this, but my life went up after that. I mean, and then a year later, I tried DMT with this guide. Let's say his name was Tim Maxwell. He was a local healer, a person who was helping people with psychedelics, and he's passed on now through suicide. I mean, what the hell is going on here?
Really?
Yeah, so I mean, he was helping so many people. I mean, he opened my eyes to the DMT trip, which is basically like a afterlife experience.
Oh, wonderful.
Which, if you're feeling depressed or suicidal before that, they say, don't worry about it, everything's fine. You have to be here. It's waiting for you. We're preparing. We're not ready. We're not ready for you.
Yeah.
It's the waiting room.
So, like, DMT, how does somebody contact that substance? I mean, that's not like something you could order at the store.
No.
So what were you, part of a experiment or something?
It was not an experiment. It was just through contacts.
Special contacts.
Very special contacts. So special, I can't even tell you right now.
How is it, what form is it in?
It was like in a yellow powderish form, and it was sort of like you're supposed to take 3 strong pulls. And I'm saying you shouldn't do this alone. I think it's better to have a sitter with you when you do. If you do this, I'm not advocating for legal drug use, of course. I wouldn't do that. But if you are in the position of choosing to do that, the safe harm reduction way would be with someone, and then you take 3 strong pulls and lay back and relax and look up at the trees, look at the leaves, and see the fractals, and then, what the hell is that?
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm there with you. Now, what has been your experiences with psilocybin?
So, I've had some ups and downs with psilocybin. When I started microdosing with psilocybin in Berlin 4 or 5 years ago, it actually, let's say, broke my depression. Now, I was still taking 4 or 5 medications at the time in the squat. Can you imagine? I was still going to a psychiatrist, getting medications, and living in the squat where people were taking all sorts of horrific drugs. And we're talking GHB, all that. Anyway, we'll get into that later. That's horror. But aside from that, I kept myself together. And this is how I did it. So I'm not against... we have to forgive. We have to find forgiveness for the pharmaceutical companies. Oh, yeah, I know it's hard for you. Yeah. I know, but I'm here on a healing mission.
I'm here on a healing mission, too. But part of my healing mission is to free people who have been enslaved by this program.
But what if they're not being enslaved? What about the people that it does help? We can't count that out. We can't paint with such a broad brush.
Right. But many, 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 many millions worldwide.
Right. People need to be educated about the alternatives. And when it works, like in my case, They need to speak out and say so that people can take note, and the doctors will take note, and the pharmaceutical companies will take note, and they'll hop on board. I'm sure of it. They're not going to be very. Look, I mean, they just want to make money. And when they see that the trend is going towards psychedelic medicine, they will go this way too. Mark my words.
But the thing is, you're saying that Big Pharma is going to wake up. Yes, they see it as making money, and they're using the agents that are successful in treating things like depression. You know, they're discovering these things. However, they may move, and this is what many people in the psych drug withdrawal community believe and fear, that they may just use the agents that they know are effective and then create many synthetic ones so that they could just put everything in pill form. And that's not part of the experience of taking plant medicine. Part of the experience, if you go into indigenous cultures, it's about ceremony. It's about ritual. It's about community. It's about going within and using the plant as an extension of nature, helping you get one with that energy within yourself. That's taken away with Big Pharma. And that's why I have a problem. That's not just the only reason why I have a problem with them. Patients are the ones now that are being empowered to tell their stories, as you do on your show, on your channel, on YouTube. All of the people that you are giving a voice to, when they tell their stories, it makes people feel like, oh, okay, like I can relate to this. They're telling my story. Wait, I'm not so. But the thing is, once we start labeling like, okay, well, these are the people with mental illness and these are the people without mental illness, that's when that superiority thing continues, which is, I'm better. These are the qualities I have that are healthy. Those are the qualities that you have that are fucked up. And those are the things that are going to be with you for the rest of your life because that's who you are. And that's what psychiatry teaches. The philosophy is the problem. Because everything grows out of the philosophy, the meds, the institutionalizations, all those things grow out of the biomedical model.
The Problem with Psychiatry by Jen Gaita Siciliano. But yeah.
Tell me about your hospitalizations.
How many?
How many? A dozen?
So, at least a dozen.
All right. Mine's 7, so you just about beat me.
I would say that the only one that was involuntary was probably in the beginning when I was on the antidepressants, which kicked out the manic episode side.
So you put yourself each time in?
After that, yeah. Because I had to monitor this, and nobody else would know what's going on inside the house except for, excusez-moi, So, like, if you got to know the symptoms and what's going on inside of you, nobody else can look at you and say, oh, you have a bleeding this or that, something going on inside of you, or not that it's bleeding, but that you have something that needs attention, the trauma that's inside of you that's trapped in the body that nobody else can see, that you could feel all on a daily basis, maybe 24/7 even. But that's what the medical marijuana is very good for as well.
So have you been working with medical marijuana?
I have not, but I've done my own...
you have your own stash.
My own stash, and I know what works for me, the sativa hybrid, and,
Well, I watched one of your things that said that indica could just, like, throw you off the deep end.
Yeah.
And why is that?
It puts me in a psychosis. It's not good for me. Because I think naturally I'm a little bit melancholic, depressive to begin with. I think that's just like my natural state. So that's why the marijuana helps, and that's why a sativa hybrid, not just a sativa. I mean, maybe that would work too if I'm like working on Wall Street or something, but
So I remember you saying that there was an interesting psychotic experience that you had in an airport in Germany.
In Moscow.
Oh, okay. So it was Moscow.
Even better. This is the anniversary of my father's death, and I was so depressed and so like.
I'm so sorry. It's today.
Thank you. No, December 22nd.
Oh, that's when you had.
That's
the
when I flew out of there. I mean, I can understand these people in the Afghanistan airport. I was going through not a similar situation. Sorry, Moscow, but the customer services. There's only one airline that runs this.
Yeah.
Airport, and people were disappearing. I mean, people were getting into fights and stuff like this. I mean, there were hundreds of people who had missed their flights. I don't want to talk about Aeroflot. But I got out alive. They let me out alive, so I dropped the lawsuit against them.
A lawsuit?
Basically, I got there and I was completely exhausted. I had there's more to this. I had attempted to fly to Israel to just hang out there or whatever, and I didn't book a return flight ticket, and I didn't have a hotel booked or anything like this. So this was this. I was already okay, and I got there, and they didn't let me into the country. As a matter of fact, they sent me back from whence I came, which was back to Germany. But I would have to go back. I'd have to have a stopover in Moscow. And when I got to Moscow, I was feeling so bad that I said, "Do you have can I talk to somebody, a doctor?" And they said, "Medic." And they bring medic. Doesn't speak a word of English. Gave me this tablet. I fell asleep. I wake up. I'm at the gate, and they're yelling at me. They say, "You missed a flight." and so like so I'm there for 3 days, just walking around, and no one will speak English with me, even though they can. You know, it's an international airport, consider that. And there are people there that can speak English, but nobody was helping me except for 2 people. I don't want to say who they are, but they helped me. They were working at the airport independently. I won't say what businesses they were working at, but they reached out, they helped me, and they helped translate and say this, he has to get deported. He's been here over 24 hours. So the way they helped me was they got me a guard that would go through the exit to get back to the to this ticketing area or wherever, this other place that I had to get to. I had to go through the metal detector again and all this stuff, and the women are there laughing at me and this and that, and like it was a horrible experience. But I mean, like I felt like I felt like I wanted to die, and I thought I was going to kill myself in the airport, and I thought that was going to be like a big international thing. But that wasn't my plan. That wasn't really what I wanted to do. You know, ultimately, I think I eventually I made some friends in the airport, and it was like this movie, The Terminal. You know, you know, I couldn't ask the police for help, you know, because people were yelling at me. They're like, do you know what that would, you know what you're doing? What that would mean? They'd arrest you. And anyway, they wouldn't arrest me, but people were really paranoid, and there was a lot of confusion, and, you know, the airline there wasn't really helping very much, but they got me out of there, and, I took valerian root to help me to calm down, to sleep. That was the thing, because I was having this neuroses. I think that's what it's for, the valerian root, right? So that actually helped me a lot as I was sort of, let's say, spiraling. So I was taking the valerian root, and that helped me to get out of there. But eventually, when I got to the airport in Stuttgart, I had a police escort, and I said, please help me out. I didn't know what's going on, and this and that, and I was stuck in the airport for 3 days, and this and that. They got me out of there. Eventually, I took a bus back to Tübingen. I went to a friend's house, and I started talking about what was going on in Moscow, and this and that, and said, are you all right, Todd? And they checked me into the mental hospital there, which was really good.
Okay, so you're saying, again, that the German mental health system is pretty good.
Very good.
Okay.
It's catching on quick.
What do they do that's different than, say, America?
You can just go to a clinic if you're not feeling well. You don't have to. There's a clinic that's made specifically for psychiatry, and they have so many different lovely modern units, and you get your own water bottle. You can put, you know, seltzer water. It's a nice place to give you a towel. It's almost like, it feels like a resort almost.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
This is paid for by the insurance. You know, they cover this. You know, there's a lot of treatments, and it's like once you're in the acute unit, they put you to the open unit, and you know they have classes and stuff like that, and groups and, you know, workshops and stuff. It's really good. They have a wonderful clinic in Tübingen. They really do. I mean, I went back there so many times just to have my medication adjusted because I wasn't feeling right.
So, okay, you weren't feeling right. Now, is it because you were still suffering from like this neurosis?
The PTSD from my father's death certainly never went away in that regard.
Did you ever find a good therapist? I mean, not a psychiatrist, but a therapist.
A therapist, yeah, I had a very good therapist in Krakow who I went to, you know, in person when I was living in Krakow, and that was great. And she was very alternative, and But I, she said don't smoke too much of the weed, but I was like, I don't know. It seems like it's working. It's almost like a medication right now. Anyway, but she was very good in the sense that it seemed a bit alternative. She was a psychiatrist, but she helped people, and it's sort of like with breathing and rebirthing method.
There's so many ways that we could approach the healing process. And that's why it's interesting to me to find and see what they're doing in other countries that are successful. I mean, I think what the problem is in psychiatry is that they don't teach the doctors how to wean people off these meds. And that's what hurts, because a lot of the problems that people consistently have once they get put on the meds are problems from the meds, because it screws everything up. So there's no real chance for you to develop any natural healing coping mechanisms that are based on your own homeostasis, because you're automatically fighting a substance that's in you that's foreign. There's no reason why you need to have chemicals in you that are brain agents. Meanwhile, they don't know what half these things do. That's true. I'm not making that up. They still don't know what these things do. So I just find that the system in place right now is there because that's the only thing that we have. And I just really feel it's like a sad excuse for what we could have based on everything we know today. And people do need help, And again, going back to like this environmental focus, like I was in my teacher's class last night, shamanic teacher, and he's from Canada. He's from the Micmac people. And he was, just kind of reminding us that like, from the Algonquin culture, they don't have a word in their language that describes judgmentalism. They don't have that. And they believe if you're acting different or if you're saying different things or whatever it is, that there's this, there's something going on maybe with you and your ancestors, or you know what I mean? Like they don't know what's going on inside your mind, or if there's like some kind of circumstances in your family. There's a sense of removal. They don't judge. And that principle is non-existent in Western medicine when it comes to treating distress of the mind. I don't like to call them illnesses or disorders, because I think that's when you adopt. You
don't want to say mental health disorders?
No, because when you adopt and you say, I'm sick for the rest of my life, you make choices based on that idea about yourself. I don't believe I'm sick for the rest of my life. I don't believe I'm sick. They don't like to hear that. When I go on the inside and I say that to them, they write it down as she's delusional. We have to keep her here because we have to keep teaching her that she has problems. And I'm just like, okay. So I do believe that they close down on the dissidents. And many people who I know that you come across, they're different. They're interesting, different. They're creative. They're, outside the box. Those are personality types that should be celebrated. Not constantly told that because they don't fit into society and they don't enjoy holding down a regular 9-to-5 job that's just like, within a box cookie cutter form. Like it doesn't have to be that way, is what I'm saying. But anyway, we're going into my.
Should we go to commercial break?
I want to go back to you. Tell me a little bit about the greenhouse in Germany. I know that people were killed there, and it was an artist commune.
I mean, the word killed is up for debate, because some people think that they were knowing that it was a dangerous place, and they took the risk by doing these drugs or killing themselves in the building or whatever.
So what was it? Was it mental health or
no? It wasn't mental health. This is just a money making thing for one fat piece of shit that benefits from artists. And he's a jealous artist too. When you have these types and they're taking advantage of everybody else. Yes. Real narcissist. And maybe he had some hippie intentions at some point, but let's say that his true intentions, which I heard him say, because I was pretty much there as his boy chick for 13 months, he would say things like he wanted to create a place of temptation and see what people would do with it. So essentially playing God, right, with 200 lives. and I knew he was up to no good, and I didn't take a lot of pictures with him. I didn't even take a lot of evidence of the place, but there was a film that was made when I was there called Bipolar, which has not been released, and that burns me.
I saw that the guy Noah or something, your friend, like was involved.
Well, Noah
with
did
that
a film too. Noah did a film too.
Oh, something
but,
different.
There a couple of people did films, and this filmmaker friend that I knew from Tübingen made a documentary about my life there, and I was starting to take mushrooms to try to heal myself, to get myself off the meds, and it actually did work. I'm not recommending that people do that, but for me, it did work. I mean, essentially, I whittled down the pills to only now just 1 milligram of risperidone. And let me tell you something. I am thankful for that. It helps me a lot. Now, I don't need to be a shamanic maniac in daily life or super sensitive or whatever. It helps me, and it's an agreement that I've made with myself and the pharmaceutical companies and all this stuff. So, I mean, I say, you know what? They do a lot of damage, they do a lot of hurt, but they don't know it. They're like a dumb puppy that needs to be educated.
Well, listen, it's great that you've gotten that low. I am, I admire that a great deal. I mean, I hope I could get there one day. And I mean, 1 milligram is nothing. That's nothing. So congrats to you. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. So so what else was going on there? I don't understand what this place was. It was was it a call out to artists, or was it like, how did they advertise themselves? And why were there 200 artists at this place?
So, I mean, if you think in terms of the Nazis, you're going to have someone who's going to be the propaganda machine. So they have, like a filmmaker that makes like image videos for them, making it look like this wonderful, beautiful place. But you got people there smearing shit all over the walls, doing horrible things, just doing too much drugs and too fucked up. And it's not a good place if you're tripping. You don't want to trip. My first mushroom trip was in the greenhouse, and I had a horrible trip where I thought I really, I saw a knife on the table, and it scared me. I was scared to go near it, so I told myself, walk over to the sofa, and I did it. And it was in this place. There was heroin needles. I mean, they closed that floor down since then, but there was shit and needles and horror. It was terrible. And then, of course, there was the shicky-micky nice posh floor, which I lived on, the 6th floor. On the side, it was called the champagne floor, and over there, and, I mean, it was quite expensive to live there. It was like 500 euros, 550 euros a month with 2 months in advance. I mean, it was terrible. But the film that was made called Bipolar was made about my life when I was there, about leaving my wife, about making these changes, about all this stuff, about being on the meds, about all this stuff, never released. We got to write to her. Can you write her an email? I'll put her email address. I mean, seriously, people have to write to her. Ask to see this film. Ask to see the film. What the hell's going on here?
Well, what happened? What was her excuse for not finishing it?
Her excuse for not finishing it, or she did finish it, but her excuse for not releasing it or not sending it to me is that I showed it to a lot of people, and one of the people that I showed it to was a journalist who's doing, let's say, the story about the 5 deaths at the greenhouse in Berlin, and I thought it was very necessary that they saw the film, and they reached out to her and asked if they could use some of the footage. She freaked the fuck out.
Why?
She freaked out because she's an amateur. She's nuts. She's nuts. I was gonna say amateur, but she's just loco. She's unwell herself.
That's too bad, because you would have been the star of the show.
I was the protagonist of the film.
That's amazing.
I mean, if that had been released, I mean, for mental health, it would have helped a lot of people too. I mean, it's like, anyway.
But what? You're translating into all the things that you're doing.
Doing now.
Exactly.
That's why I'm pushing so hard on, just putting myself out there as well, because I had these opportunities that were lost. So, you know what? You got to take advantage of it now.
Yeah. You just you take that energy and it turns into something else. It morphs into the current project. The power of creativity.
Exactamundo. The power of creation.
So I know you're in touch with, or you did an interview with a person from MAPS.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is?
So MAPS.org is a I don't want to, do I say multidisciplinary? It's something. I can't tell you what it stands for, but it is a foundation that deals with the treatment of, for lack of better terms, mental health issues, using psychedelics and plant medicine and things. Marijuana too.
Okay. And do they have research going on at their facility or whatever?
Yes. For MAPS, they're in phase 3 of the clinical trials, and that means it's one step away from it being available to the public.
Wow.
By 2023, they're estimating. Other companies have estimated 2024, but between this time, you're going to start seeing this a lot. They're introducing it little by little. They're edging it out. There are psychedelic companies that are on the market. They don't advertise because, well, actually they do advertise. I see them on Facebook all the time. And on Instagram, too. They're in Field Trip, different things like that. Maps, even Mind something. They have so many different organizations that are coming about now, and I'm interviewing them. And, that I'm finding out what's going on with that, because this is the wave of the future. This is healing. This is healing the world, and this is going to help people. This can save lives.
Well, you know what? I want to push, and I think this is important. I know people with questions, they might say, well, why is it that, it's still drug use? Like, why is it that this particular drug is better, in your opinion, than psych meds, for instance? And I mean, my personal opinion is that when you do take those plant medicines, if you will, they kind of open up something that's naturally inside and allows you to make your own, through this altered state, your own peace with your thoughts, your emotions, you come to a place where you sit with that, and there's a catharsis that can potentially happen. So that's not like the same thing at all as psych meds. Psych meds, actually, the reason why they are effective, and again, let me just say this very clearly, because it is something that I try to reiterate. I may be radical, but I am not judgmental. And I know that a lot of people choose to take psych meds for many, many reasons. And I have friends who, are on them, and they found them to be extremely helpful in helping them regain control of their lives. So there's a place for them. I'm only against forced drugging, because then it says that, we know better as to how to take care of you. And if you're being hurt by that, then that's just wrong. It's just wrong. So, but
it's a human rights violation.
Exactly. I think that's a big, big thing in my approach, because I've been so aggressively, to the point where it was like the human rights violations were out of control. And then when I find out I wasn't the only one that went through it, that's why I tend to be radical about it. But going back to a lot of the time, psych meds, what they do is help you get out of rumination, and they take away that kind of like that thought that won't stop, that's causing so many problems. So there's a reason for that to be used as well. And I think however, I think it's a quick fix. And what a lot of these treatments do is allow you to go within and start the journey and try to figure it out. And it's like almost like a slow medicine thing. I mean, you may not need that much. You say DMT. I mean, you weren't taking it every day for like years, right?
It's a one-time
Exactly.
thing.
That's the thing. And that's how mushrooms can work too. So, it is very interesting to be open to other things. The problem is, like, when you have the government saying that these things are, they're Schedule 1, which means there's no medical effectiveness to any of these things, then it becomes an issue where people are trying to figure out, well, why is it wrong or why is it illegal? And they want to believe in their systems and say, well, they must be telling us something right. But this is not the case. We need to listen to the people who are using these things.
Correct.
So when you talk to them, what exciting things did you discover? The people from MAPS.
I discovered that we are really on the cusp of a huge revolution in psychiatry. Because look, it's not just taking the drugs or this medicine. Because things can go wrong if you take it yourself. I mean, you could have a bad trip, or it could traumatize you more. That is a possibility. Imagine taking mushrooms and having to go out and talk to people, and it's a nightmare. Just all these different energies coming at you. You have to deal with it to be in your bed, and maybe somebody there to assist if bring water and things like that. It's important. It's very important. But by no means am I advocating illegal drug use on your own. Don't do that. Wait till the FDA approves it and these treatments become available to the public. Thank you so much.
He wants to put that in. He wants to make sure his name is not associated with anybody getting hurt from this, from taking it on themselves. Well, I do believe, things have to be. I mean, that's always why I'm a little careful, because I know that too. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just like be so liberal with this, and that's when bad things happen. But listen, God, what are they called? They hold psych withdrawal talks sometimes, and I think it's called the Psychedelic Society, and it's based in Britain. And they are, full out working on this as well. Like, and they're really pro that in psychiatry. They also know the problems with the current psychiatric approaches. So there's a place, and I really, really want to believe and hope that if they're opening up themselves to this kind of new revolutionary way of dealing with, maybe approaching the healing of mental illness, then that's a very new day, because generally the way they sell the drugs is that you need them forever. And they're the only solution.
It's a monopoly.
Right. Right. And you hear all the time, like, oh my gosh, you got to make sure you go for treatment. You have to go immediately for treatment. Now, the thing is, your situation is different. And I think that I need to be sensitive, and we need just generally be sensitive to others who experience this as well. Suicide is a different animal when you have suicidal tendencies. So, we want to stop. That's like one of the most important things, right? To stop those tendencies before you can't do anything about it, about the results. So having those experiences and having that pretty recent as well, what's your take on that? I mean, do you feel that the most important thing is to make sure that you swing in there and get people out of that rumination state, or taking the person by the hand and helping them through slowly? I mean, I don't know what that answer is. And what was it for you?
It's a very good question, because I think about it sometimes as something that almost, I hate to say it this way, but something that I'd want to try and had to happen, because I was obsessed with the idea of dying. I was just obsessed with the concept of dying. I wanted to die, wanted to be with my father, didn't want to be in this shit planet anymore. And just the people are too fucked up. And when you're a sensitive person, you just don't want to be around, because nobody really understands. So I would say that my attempt at taking my own life, I was relieved when I made that decision. I started taking the pills and then the bottle of wine. I was really like, you know what? I got nothing else going on right now. Nobody wants me around, and who needs this? And and then people came to my rescue, and I saw the good in mankind and humankind, and I was saved by the Jesus people. So I understand what it means to be, saved by Jesus.
Oh, really?
Both times that I was very close to the edge, it was Jesus people. The first time I was 15 years old, I crushed up a bottle of pills. I was about to take it, and then there was a ring at the doorbell. It was the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Interesting.
There to tell me about the world ending. So I said, great, I don't have to kill myself if the world's going to end, if we're all going to die. So that was that. And then the other time when I was 40, I didn't want to be 40. I was freaking out about it. I said I didn't do what I wanted to do. The film wasn't released. So many failures, and I said, this is it. I had enough. And the people saved me.
2019 when you turned 40?
Yeah, 2019, and then like 2 weeks later, I flew to Vietnam to under the pretenses of teaching English, which I didn't do in the end. I broke the contract, and they took my passport. I had to pay them $600 to get it back. And then I hung out in Hanoi and started a project called Beautiful Minds, which was about mental health. And then I came back to New York in November of 2019. And started doing the show for Comcast about mental health issues. And over the summer I took DMT, and since then it's been whoopee!
Wow.
No depression, no suicidal, thoughts.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so inspiring, because it doesn't happen like that all the time. Usually you just keep it at bay, and it's like people are consistently dealing with those tendencies. But you were able to somehow do pretty much like a 360.
Yeah.
DMT. DMT sounds like a revolutionary substance.
It's a big reset.
Yeah. I think that if we're open to vast change, it can happen. And I'm really happy for you that you no, seriously, that you pulled yourself out of that. And, you know, I mean, it's not to say that in the future you won't have bad times, but certainly this was a big reset. So again, alternative approaches, ways to reset, you know, look for these things, people. You know, we're just sharing what we think, you know, might be an interesting road, something new.
Ways to cleanse the emotional baggage.
Because we all carry it, right?
We all do. Nobody's exempt from that.
I think we experienced that a lot with COVID too, because it was like, I kept thinking as it was happening, wow, like I'm okay with this, staying home all the time, like doing my
because we're used
stuff.
to that,
exactly.
Right? Being depressive, and
I was like, all right, this is cool. Like everybody,
I was made for this.
I was like, I'm strong. I felt so strong with such like, you know, a powerful, like, you know, cape, like a cape of like, I can take on the end of the world. I'm ready. You know what I mean? But, you know, others weren't. Others who were always normalized, they always associate themselves with the ones who had it together, the normals, the well-adjusted. They couldn't feel successful anymore in their jobs at work because maybe they were stuck online with their pajamas or whatever. And that threw them off. They couldn't get their haircuts. That threw them off on such a level that I was like, there's problems. There's problems with people.
People are so spoiled.
Yeah. And that's what I experienced when I came home from India. I was like, oh my God, these people are dying on the streets. And I hadn't seen that. I don't know if I'm older than you, but I don't know if you ever remember Sally Struthers and her Ethiopian. Yeah. Okay. So that whole thing was going on like during, what's his name? Do they know it's Christmas time?
Do they know?
Yeah,
Bob Geldof and all them?
Yes. So it's like that during that time period, people were still connecting to this vision of what's going on over there, or what's going on in Ethiopia, or what's going on with these faraway places. Oh my God, they're starving. People stopped seeing that after a while. When cable started like taking over, you didn't need to see that. You know what I mean? Like once in a while you saw it like on an infomercial at like 3:00 in the morning. So that sense of like, oh, I don't see it, so it's not there.
Ignorance.
Yeah. And you've been all around the world, so I know that you've seen a lot. And when I went there, it was like, oh my God, I was really, really like sheltered, you know, coming out of an Italian family, immigrant family in Lower Westchester. And I was like, what? But I didn't have the disassociation until I came back from India. When it was like, then I had to like,
culture shock.
Yes, it was a reverse culture shock where I was like, wow, like how do I deal with this now that I've seen all this? It was a permanent thing. And I still have some very good friends who walked with me during those times, and they're still in my life, and I'm very lucky for them. But it definitely changed fundamentally who I was, probably chemically, and just in my mind. My mind was different, but I never took it in any way as they were trying to convince me that there's something wrong with your brain. And I'm like, no, there isn't. I had an experience and you won't listen. So in everything that they wrote down in my records about the experience, they said it was delusional.
Like a psychosis.
Yeah. And that's why I have a problem with psychosis, the word psychosis, because many, many people in indigenous cultures, they have these things and they don't call it that. And they celebrate it. And those people are the ones to lead in the healing. Look at us with our psychosis type personalities, right? Aren't we ushering in the healing for many people who are suffering?
The new generation.
Everyone better go see Todd Goldfinger's YouTube channel. What's it called? Just Todd Goldfinger?
You could just put in Todd Goldfinger and you're going to find lovely things on the internet. Put in Google Todd Goldfinger Tell your device to play Todd Goldfinger. Enjoy the music. Go for a ride. Listen to Desert Sands. You're going to love it.
Yeah, he's a pretty amazing bass player, too.
Thank you.
You don't talk that up enough. I've been trying to get it out of you, but, you know, you were like doing major things musically.
I have to tell you that I'm happy. Thank you. I'm happy that I was able to do the musical things that I was able to do, but let me tell you, it wasn't easy because during the time I was also depressed, but it was sort of more on the inside, and it didn't rear its ugly head until I, left the marriage and moved up to Berlin and tried to live as a full-blown artist 24/7 and take mushrooms and meet my flame in Turkey and all that stuff.
And tell us about your Comcast show. How can we see that?
Comcast show is still going in syndication. You can find it on YouTube. Put in Todd Goldfinger. You're going to find lots of great stuff. I hope that you enjoy the content that I'm able to create for you and that it makes you forget about the world, politics, and all that nonsense.
Todd, another question I have before you go, and I think that this is more of a personal interest. You taught English abroad. I just find this to be so interesting because, how many languages do you know? Like, do you know other languages? Okay, so what are the two?
English and German.
Oh, you do know German?
I speak German fluently.
Oh, is your family...
No, I went to Germany, and I had a very good wife who enrolled me in an excellent German course, which I took for about a year and a half.
Okay.
I got up to C1 level. I forgot a lot of stuff, and then I demanded people speak to me in English for anti-Semitic reasons or whatever my trauma was about the Holocaust. I made people speak to me in English sometimes.
I could imagine. I could imagine. And I don't have that heritage, I guess, or that bloodline memory, but I experience things all the time with psychosis with the Holocaust. I don't know why. It's very close to my soul. So if I was there and I was hearing a lot of German speaking, I would say that too. After a while, geez.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary sometimes. But it's a good language, and I encourage people to learn foreign languages if you have the opportunity to do it, especially if you're living in a foreign country. Learn the language. Do it. I did it. You can do it too.
All right. Well, Todd, you're nothing but an inspiration. You're a powerhouse of creativity, and I am so thankful that I've gotten to know you within a week.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm so happy.
I think you're a wonderful person, so thank you so much.
Well, you're wonderful as well. Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.